A stranger's phone trembled in his hand near the edge of the parking lot. I could see it from where I sat, just a few yards away, in the space reserved for patient drop-offs, though no one cared anymore who had the right to be where. He didn't look like he meant to film. He looked like he wished he had, but the screen glowed anyway, the thumbnail locked in place, the headline seared across it like a scar. Amputee veteran and wife taken down by hospital security. The frame was paused at the exact moment Anna hit the ground, knees first, one hand outstretched. Her face wasn't visible, just the shape of her body collapsing and the rigid figure of a man in uniform holding a taser, still aimed. The caption beneath it read, 10 hours ago. That was the moment. The one that spread across phones and news feeds like a flame across dry grass. That's the moment they all saw. But not what came before. Not the morning. Not the voice that told her, just a minute more, we're almost there. Not the argument, the grip on her arm. Not the silence that followed the shock. And certainly not what came after. Now people were circling the man with the phone. They were talking, muttering, forming opinions. Some angry, some curious. One woman covered her mouth with her hand. A man in scrubs looked away. But me, I stayed where I was. My right leg prosthetic sat crooked on the pavement. The crutches had slipped from my hands during the fall. I hadn't gotten back up. I hadn't wanted to. Not until I knew she was safe. Not until someone believed me. And now, here I sat, outside the very hospital I was supposed to be admitted into, blood dried at the edge of my elbow, jacket torn at the sleeve, staring at the reflection of my wife's fall over and over again. That was 10 hours ago. Now, everyone wants to know how it happened. So let's go back to where it really began. My name is Mark Davis. I lost my right leg in Afghanistan. Third tour. 1 week before I was supposed to come home. We were clearing a roadside checkpoint near Helmand province. I remember the morning clearly. How the air smelled of dust and fuel. How the sky had that washed-out blue that always comes before heat rises off the ground. I was a squad leader. 10 men under my command. I was 29, older than most of the guys, younger than the commanders who sent us out again and again. I used to say the job came naturally. Maybe it did. Maybe it was because I'd been leading since I was 10 years old, since my dad walked out and left me to raise my mother. She broke down in pieces after that, and I swept them up every night for years. Responsibility doesn't feel like a burden when you're used to carrying other people's weight. The IED was buried shallow. They always are when they want you to suffer more than die. It hit just behind the lead Humvee. The blast lifted me off the ground and set the inside of my skull ringing like a church bell. My leg was gone before I hit the ground. I didn't even feel it, just the sudden weightlessness, then the noise, then the sky, then darkness. I woke up 5 days later in a medical tent in Germany. A nurse with a kind voice said, "You're lucky." I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow. I felt like something important had been cut away, not the leg. The purpose. When I got home, there were banners. A few neighbors showed up with food. But after a week, it was quiet again. They moved on. I didn't. That's when Anna became everything. We met at the pharmacy. I was fumbling with my crutches, trying to reach a bottle on the top shelf. She offered to help. I refused. She helped anyway. I said, "Thank you." She said, "You're welcome," and the way she said it made me want to keep talking. She was a teacher, first grade, the kind of person who remembered her students' birthdays years after they left her classroom. She carried hand sanitizer in her purse and cough drops in every coat pocket. She read to me sometimes when I couldn't sleep. History books, mostly, or the poems her kids wrote and left in her desk drawer. She was light in the kind of way that doesn't blind you, just makes you notice how dark it's been. Anna learned the VA system because I couldn't. The forms, the appointments, the appeals. She handled it all. She never made me feel weak for needing her. When I told her I didn't feel like a man anymore, she looked at me and said, "You're still mine." That's more than enough. We married quietly, in a courthouse on a Tuesday morning. I wore a suit that didn't quite fit. She wore a yellow dress. She laughed when the clerk mispronounced her name. I remember thinking, if I have nothing else in this life, this will be enough. But trauma doesn't stay buried. It creeps. It festers. Sometimes I'd wake up sweating, breath caught in my throat, reaching for a leg that wasn't there. She'd sit with me until it passed, hold my hand until my body remembered where it was. The hardest part wasn't the pain, it was the stillness. There were no missions now, no orders to give, just long days and longer nights. Sometimes I sat in the dark and wondered if the best parts of my life had already happened in a place I left behind. But then I'd hear her voice from the kitchen, singing softly, or laughing on the phone with her sister, and I'd come back. That was my war now, coming back. And for a while, we managed. Until that Saturday. It started like any other. I woke early, felt the stiffness in the stump before I even moved. Tried to sit up, but the pain hit fast, deep, burning, like something clawing from inside the bone that wasn't there. Anna came in, saw my face, and said nothing. Just helped me swing my leg over the edge of the bed, adjusted the liner of the socket, and waited until I could breathe again. You need to go in, she said gently. I'll be fine, I lied. Mark, she said, that teacher tone slipping in. So I nodded. She dressed quickly, pulled her hair into a clip, grabbed my crutches, and helped me into the car. We drove to Mercy General Hospital in Dover. The lot was nearly full, and the pain had worsened. I couldn't lift the crutches anymore. She pulled into the loading zone near the ER entrance, left the hazard lights on, and opened my door. I'll get someone, she said, and moved fast toward the sliding doors. That's when he appeared. Officer Carter, hospital security, a man with a pressed uniform and a permanent scowl, mid-40s, buzzed haircut, the kind of man who wore his belt like a weapon. You can't park there, he said immediately, walking toward the car. Anna turned. My husband's a disabled veteran. He's in pain. We're just getting him inside. This is a fire lane, he cut in. Move the vehicle. We will, she said, just as soon as. No exceptions. I need to see your permit. He's a combat amputee. He's not. Do you have a permit or not? He barked. Anna exhaled slowly. I'll be right back, she said to me, and turned toward him again. Sir, I understand you're doing your job, but please, I just need a few minutes. You think the rules don't apply because he served? Carter said. I've heard it all. Everyone's got a story. He started writing a citation. She stepped forward, blocking his pen. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for decency. He looked up slowly, and I saw it. That flicker of satisfaction. The kind of look men like him get when they think they're winning. Step away from me, ma'am, he said. I'm not touching you, she replied, voice tight now. But you're abusing your authority. That's when the shift happened. The kind that doesn't announce itself with shouting, but with posture. His hand drifted toward his belt. His eyes narrowed, and I knew. I tried to stand. Failed. The crutches were tangled at my feet. The pain stabbed deep. I shouted her name, but it was already too late. She didn't scream when he grabbed her. She flinched. That was all. His hand clamped around her upper arm, just above the elbow, fingers tight enough to bruise. Anna tried to pull away. Her voice rose, not in panic, but in protest. Get your hand off me. Carter didn't let go. In the seconds that followed, I saw everything. Not just what was in front of me, but what came with it. The sound of gravel under boots. The way her jaw clenched when she was afraid. The flicker in Carter's eyes that said he didn't care who she was, or who I was. Don't touch her, I shouted. He didn't listen. He didn't ask. He reached for his taser, and still, no one moved. I saw the wires before I heard the click. Twin lines stretching out, barely visible against the daylight. One hit her shoulder, the other her hip. Her body jerked hard. She crumpled to the pavement with a cry strangled in her throat. Her head struck the curb. Her legs spasmed once, then went still. Her dress had twisted upward, and in the middle of convulsion, she reached down, not to stop the pain, but to pull the hem down over her knees. Even unconscious, she tried to protect her dignity. That image would live with me forever. I dropped to the ground. Crawl. My legs screamed with every shift of weight. The prosthetic tore loose. I didn't care. My elbows scraped against the asphalt as I dragged myself toward her. People had begun to gather by then. First a nurse, running from the ER entrance, eyes wide, gloves already on. Then a man in scrubs. A woman with a phone recording from behind her car door. The hand holding the phone shook, but she didn't look away. Carter stood over Anna, taser still pointed, his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was her breath. Thin, erratic. Anna, I whispered. She didn't answer. I made it to her side, cradled her head. Her lips were parted, teeth clenched, eyes fluttering. You're okay, I said. You're safe. I'm here. The nurse reached us seconds later. I saw everything, she said. Don't move her. I nodded. My hand rested on Anna's shoulder. She was still trembling. I looked up at Carter. He wasn't shouting now. He wasn't saying anything. Just watching, chest heaving. Maybe it was the crowd. Maybe it was the phone. Maybe it was me, on the ground, holding my wife, looking directly into him. I said it then, quietly. Sir, you just made a mistake. He flinched. I want you to hear what I'm about to say, I continued. You assaulted an unarmed civilian. You obstructed access to emergency medical care for a disabled veteran. You created a federal incident. And it was all recorded. People were filming now. 2, maybe 3 phones visible. One man was already on the phone with someone. Police, maybe. Media. I didn't know. I didn't care. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Because I remembered who I used to be. The man who stood in front of a unit before patrol and said, "Here's the mission. Here are the risks. Here's what you do if it goes bad." I knew what this was. I knew what came next. The nurse helped lift Anna onto a stretcher. Another woman ran to grab ice. An administrator appeared from inside, flanked by a younger man with a badge and radio. They pulled Carter aside. I didn't hear what they said. I stayed on the ground until they took Anna inside. My fingers were scraped raw. My stump throbbed. My shirt clung to my back with sweat. But I stayed seated on the pavement because this wasn't over. Not yet. A man in a hoodie knelt beside me. "I got it all," he said quiet. "The whole thing. I'm uploading it now." I looked at him. He nodded. "You want me to send it somewhere?" "Send it everywhere," I said. 10 minutes later, a detective arrived. Hall, that was her name. Mid-40s. Calm. Wore her badge like it was part of her skin, not a performance. She crouched next to me. "I saw the footage," she said. "Is your wife stable?" "She's in the ER now. I haven't been allowed back yet." She nodded. "I need your statement." So I gave it. Every detail. The car, the zone, the warning, the taser, the crawl. She didn't interrupt, didn't take calls. Just listen. Her pen moved slowly, deliberate. When I finished, she closed her notebook and asked, "Do you wish to press charges?" I looked toward the ER doors. "Yes," I said. They wouldn't let me see her for an hour. The staff needed to run tests, EKG, MRI, full neurological workup. I sat in the waiting area, jacket in my lap, hands raw from crawling across the pavement. A nurse offered me water. I didn't touch it. The prosthetic leaned against the wall next to me like a broken promise. Detective Hall returned and said she'd spoken with the hospital supervisor. "They're cooperating," she said. "The footage is clear." "What happens to him?" I asked. She hesitated. "He's been placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. The hospital's legal department is involved. So is the city." That wasn't enough, but I nodded, because Anna was still in there. A few minutes later, a young man approached me. Late 20s. Clip-on tie. Nervous. "Mr. Davis?" "Yes. I'm Brian O'Connell. Hospital Communications. We're aware of the situation." He handed me a business card I didn't take. "I just want to say, on behalf of Mercy General, we deeply regret the events of this morning. It was never our intention. Your security officer assaulted my wife in your parking lot," I interrupted, "while she was trying to get me inside for treatment." He paused. "Yes, we're reviewing protocols." "Review them faster." He blinked. "We're also preparing a formal statement. And the footage has gained attention." "How much?" "Hundreds of thousands of views in 2 hours. It's on every platform." "Good." Anna was released later that day. No broken bones, but muscle trauma. Burn marks from the taser leads. A mild concussion. When she saw me, she smiled. "Still here?" "Always." We drove home slowly. She held my hand across the center console. At every red light, she looked at me, not to ask anything, just to make sure I was still real. By the time we got home, the story had been picked up by 3 national outlets. Veteran and wife tossed outside ER, captured on video. Hospital security under fire for use of force on veteran family. Disabled vet crawls to wife after security incident at Mercy General. We didn't sleep that night. Anna lay curled on her side, her body sore. I sat in the living room, scrolling through coverage. It didn't make me feel better, but I needed to see it. Needed to know the world had seen her too. The next morning, we got a call from the Department of Veterans Affairs. A man named Harlan Liu. He introduced himself as a regional case advisor. "We've opened an inquiry," he said. "We'll be conducting interviews, reviewing your file." "You've had my file for years." "Yes, sir, but we're reviewing it again." By the end of that week, Officer Carter was terminated. The hospital issued a second, longer statement. They used terms like failure of oversight and inappropriate use of force. They named Anna publicly. They acknowledged the trauma. Then they reached out again. This time, it was the hospital's chief operations officer. Her name was Lillian Vega. She came in person. No cameras, no legal team, just her. We met in a side room of the VA clinic. "I'm not here to defend what happened," she said. "I'm here because I need your help." That stopped me. "I want to change how we train our staff," she said. "Not just security, all staff, front desk to admin, on how to recognize, support, and de-escalate situations involving veterans. And you want us to do what? Design it, teach it, from your perspective. I looked at Anna. She hadn't said a word since Vega entered. Then she spoke. We'll do it, but not for you. For the next couple who walks through your doors and needs to be seen, not judged. That was the beginning. We called it Operation Still Standing, a training curriculum focused on veteran-specific trauma, civilian military cultural gaps, and real de-escalation strategies. We developed modules, filmed reenactments, and held workshops. The first time I stood in front of a room of hospital staff, I felt the weight of that day in the parking lot pressing on my back. I played the video, not the whole thing, just the part where Anna fell, then me crawling. Then I paused it, and I said, "This is what failure looks like." No one moved, no one blinked. Anna followed me to the podium. "Now let's talk about how we make sure it never happens again." And they listened. Not everyone liked it. Some rolled their eyes. But they listened, because it was real, because it had already happened. We didn't stop with Mercy General. Once the video went viral, we started getting emails from other hospitals, clinics, security companies, VA centers. Some were defensive, some dismissive, but a few, just a few, asked the question that mattered. "Can you help us do better?" And so we did. We drove cross-country, flew economy, stayed in motels with thin walls and vending machines that never worked. We spoke in cafeterias, boardrooms, and break rooms, sometimes to 5 people, sometimes to 500. Anna adapted the language for different departments. She made laminated cards for front desk clerks, quick response scripts for when veterans show signs of distress. I wrote procedures for security supervisors, teaching them the signs that matter: tight shoulders, controlled breathing, the way a man scans a room even when nothing's wrong. We weren't experts, but we knew what pain looked like when it was ignored. We knew what being treated like a threat felt like, and that was enough. People asked us how we kept going, how we could relive that day over and over again without break. The truth? We did break, but something stronger filled the cracks. Not anger, purpose. One morning, in Tulsa, a woman approached us after a workshop. She was a nurse, late 50s. She said her husband had served in Iraq and never spoke about it. "He doesn't even go near hospitals," she said. "Not after the last time." I asked what happened. She looked down. "They restrained him during an anxiety episode, treated him like a junkie. He hasn't stepped inside a clinic since." She paused. "After today," she said, "I'm going home to tell him I'm sorry, not for what happened, but for not understanding." That's when I knew it mattered. Not for the headlines, not for the policy changes, but for the quiet things. The apologies, the letters, the moments where someone saw us and didn't look away. One winter night, back home in Dover, I was leaving the VA after my monthly therapy check-in. A young man caught up to me in the hallway. 25, maybe, clean-shaven, nervous. "Mr. Davis," he said. I was at Mercy General last year. I saw it happen. I didn't do anything." He looked at the floor. "I should have stepped in." I studied him. His shoulders were tight. His hands were fists. "You saw her fall?" He nodded. "But you didn't walk away." "No." "You remember it?" "Every day." I put my hand on his shoulder. "Then you're doing something now." He looked up, eyes red, said nothing, just nodded. That was enough. We went back to Mercy General a year later. Anna walked through the same entrance, parked in the same loading zone. This time, a sign had been added: "Veteran drop-off, no time limit." A security guard opened the door for us. He didn't ask for a permit. He just said, "Good morning." We smiled. There's a power in being remembered. Not glorified, not pitted, just remembered. And we were. That hospital wasn't the same. Neither were we. Anna had bruises that never fully faded. Sometimes she woke at night and clutched her shoulder, as if the wires were still there. I'd hold her hand and remind her, "We're not there anymore." And she'd breathe and let go. At home, we kept the citation frame, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. The paper was still creased, still smelled faintly of heat and asphalt. Above it, Anna had written one line in black mark: "Never again." We never took money, never sued. The lawyers were surprised. "You could own that hospital," one said. We didn't want to own anything. We wanted change. And we got it. A year passed. Then 2. Life didn't return to normal. It became something different, quieter, measured, intentional. Anna went back to teaching full-time. Her students were younger than the event, untouched by it, and that was a kind of grace. She didn't tell them what happened, but sometimes, she'd come home with drawings from kids who said things like, You look like a hero. She kept those folded in a box next to the framed citation. I volunteered weekly at a local vet center. Mostly I talked. Sometimes I just listened. The men and women there didn't need speeches. They needed someone who understood what it meant to be invisible in plain sight. One afternoon, I met a Marine named Jared, 22, discharged after a spinal injury, still learning how to move through the world in a chair that felt more like armor than help. He told me he stopped going to ERs after a nurse once told him, "You can wait like everyone else." I asked where the pain went. He looked at me and said, "Nowhere. I just hide it better." So we talked every week, and eventually, he filed for care again. Small victories. That's how the healing came. One day, the hospital called. Not Mercy General. A new one, county-run, larger, understaffed. Their administrator said they were revamping their veteran intake protocols and had modeled them off Operation Still Standing. They wanted me to review their materials. I read every word, marked the sections that were too vague, too clinical. Then I rewrote the opening paragraph. It began, "You are safe here. We see you. We are here to serve." They kept it. Everywhere we went, people asked about the video. Was it real? Did it really happen like that? How did it feel to become a symbol? I never knew how to answer, because I didn't feel like a symbol. I felt like a man who couldn't protect his wife when she needed him most. But I also knew what it meant to reclaim something after it had been stripped away. Dignity doesn't return in parades. It comes in silence. In the moment someone meets your eyes and doesn't flinch. There were setbacks. Once, while boarding a flight for a conference, TSA asked Anna to step aside for additional screening. They claimed it was random, but she was the only one they pulled. She turned to me, a familiar shadow crossing her face. And for the first time, I stepped forward, not as a veteran, not as a victim, but as a witness. "She's with me," I said, "and you're about to make the same mistake." The agent backed down. We boarded in silence. On the plane, Anna squeezed my hand. "You didn't shout," she said. "I didn't need to." "Because they recognized you?" "No," I said, "because I recognized myself." That's what had changed. I wasn't waiting for the world to validate me anymore. I carried my own authority, not because of medals, not because of the flag stitched to my jacket, but because I knew who I was. That's what they tried to take that day. Authority. And that's what I took back. Not with lawsuits, not with vengeance, but with truth spoken clearly, in places where power thought it could speak alone. The final workshop we led was at a federal conference on healthcare reform. Big room, hundreds of chairs, rows of people in suits, many with pens ready but few with ears truly open. Anna walked to the podium. No notes, just presence. "My name is Anna Davis," she said. "A man once told me to move my car or face the consequences. I didn't move, and I did face consequences. But I also found something stronger." She paused. Not anger, not justice, but clarity. Then she stepped back. I took her place. "My name is Mark Davis. I served 3 tours overseas, but I was injured most deeply at home, outside a hospital, in front of witnesses." I scanned the room. "And I'm not here to tell you a sob story. I'm here to tell you that dignity is a right, not a reward." I let that sit. And then, I said the thing no one expected. "I forgive him." Gasps, murmurs. "I forgive Carter, not because he deserves it, but because I won't carry him anymore. I'll carry the ones who helped us up." That was the real ending. Not the punishment, but the release. When we walked off stage, no one clapped right away. They stood in silence. And for once, silence felt holy. Anna still parks in loading zones when I need help. But now, she doesn't look over her shoulder. She doesn't wait for permission. She steps out of the car, opens my door, and walks beside me like she always has. And if someone approaches us, security, staff, a stranger, she doesn't flinch. She simply says, "We won't be long," and keeps moving. That's all it takes now. Because dignity, once restored, carries weight. The kind that bends rules. The kind that quiets rooms. Sometimes I catch her watching the world, scanning for someone else like us. And when she sees them, she steps in. A word to a nurse. A hand on a shoulder. No one tells her to. She just does it. That's what power looks like when it's honest. Quiet. Grounded. Earned. I think often about that video. The frozen frame on a stranger's phone. I wonder how many people saw it and thought, that could have been me. Or worse, I might have looked away. But they didn't. The video made them see. And remember, 10 hours was all it took to upend a system. But the consequences, those are still unfolding. In policy, in training manuals, in hushed conversations behind ER desks when a veteran walks through the door. Real authority doesn't come from shouting. It comes from standing. Even if you're crawling, even if your hands are bloody, even if the person you love is unconscious beside you. It comes from memory, and from the voice that still rises, calm, even, unwavering, long after the shouting stops. We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become next. And that, finally, is enough.